What is up, everybody? This is your guy Cly, and welcome back to Budget Buys. And today, I'm going to be talking about switch pullers. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about the Gateron switch puller. And one of the reasons for that is because in my DIY switch puller tutorial, I kinda called this thing out due to the fact that it is $35. But of course, that's not enough of a reason for me to take the time to make this video because pretty much everyone that does something keyboard related has talked about this at least once. And that brings me to the other reason I'm making this video, which is that there is now a low-cost alternative to the Gateron switch puller that operates in pretty much the same manner. And when I say low cost, this thing will set you back around $8. And for good measure, I'm also going to be comparing both of these to the DIY switch puller I made in a previous video. First off, let's just take a closer look at the Gateron puller. Like I said, this thing comes in at $35. Yes, I know there are a few sellers out there putting these up for $25, but whenever I checked the shipping and handling on those websites, it was around $10, which brings us back to the $35 price tag. Though sometimes you can get lucky and find a seller offering this for a grand total of around $30, but that's really the only variation I've been able to find on the pricing. And as for how it works, it's actually a really well-engineered piece of kit. At least this one. This is actually version 2 of the switch puller, and from what I've been reading online, version 1 had a bit of a habit of self-destructing. That's not a good thing. Also on version 1, if I'm not mistaken, the part down here, which is going to be making contact with your switch and possibly your base plate, used to be all metal, but now it is plastic. As for how it works, it has these two prongs on the bottom, and when I press the keycap at the top, they pop out. And once it's like this, you just need to find your switch, go around the edges, press down, and the prongs will lock around your switch, letting you pull it out pretty easily. Once you've done that, just hit the keycap at the top, and it'll eject your switch. Next up, we have the latest addition to the switch puller family, which honestly, I've yet to find an actual brand name associated with this thing. It seems to be a generic part sold by multiple sellers, and I'm perfectly fine with that. And because it's sold by so many different sellers under so many different names, the prices for this thing are all over the board. Technically, I did pay $13 for this one, but it did come with a wire keycap puller as well as a little brush to clean your keyboard. However, since I ordered this, there have been more and more sellers with stateside inventory that have started offering this. So you can now get it with free 2-day shipping for as low as $8, and technically even cheaper if you buy a multi-pack. Now, as for how this thing actually works, it is very similar to the Gateron puller in that it has these two prongs that are going to engage the locking tabs on your switch. However, it doesn't have the nifty little locking and releasing action on the end here. Instead, you actually have to push down on this to extend the prongs and then release it to make it close again. And there is no locking action. So I guess in reality, it's not so much related to the Gateron switch puller as it is one of these little prong grabbers, sometimes referred to as a prong grabber, small parts grabber, gem grabber, pearl grabber, whatever the seller wants to call it. It just behaves very similarly. Last but not least, we have the little DIY switch pullers that I showed you how to make in a previous video. And this is the lowest price option of the switch pullers in this video, coming in at around only $1.50 to make. Of course, that's the price for this single set of tweezers. I did have to buy them in a 6-pack for $8 to actually get a good price on them. And it also doesn't take into account what you spent on the pliers that you actually need to bend everything into shape. Though, all said, I did only spend a total of $13 for 6 pairs of tweezers as well as the pliers. As far as how these work, they're very similar to the little U-shaped switch pullers that are included with pretty much every low-cost mechanical gaming keyboard, in that they have bent tips that are meant to engage the locking tabs on your key switch. However, pretty much everyone hates these things, so they reach for a trusty set of IC pullers instead. However, I hate these things too, which is why I made this. And it does address multiple issues with the U-shaped pullers as well as the IC pullers. And instead of going off on that tangent here, I'm just gonna plug the video where I make this thing. You can find a link to that video down in the description as well as in a pinned comment. Now, I can tell you how these switch pullers work all day long, but I think it's better to actually show you. And for the first demo, I'm going to be using this Red Dragon K530 Pro SE, which has a metal base plate and hot swap sockets, as opposed to hot swap sleeves. And I'm going to start things off with the Gateron switch puller. Let's go ahead and eject the prongs, line the prongs up with the locking tabs on the switch, and press down. Now, things should have engaged. Yeah, looks good. And then I can just pull straight up, switches out. And the part everyone really loves about this switch puller, it ejects with quite a bit of force. Next up is what I'm just going to be calling the switch grabber from now on, due to the fact that, like I said, it's pretty much just a massive prong grabber. Go ahead and eject the prongs. It's kind of awkward to do on camera. Line the prongs up with the switch tabs, and it's actually best to, instead of releasing the plunger, to just lower things down while holding onto the plunger, and I should be locked on. And here is where things are going to get a little counterintuitive, because most people are going to want to grab the main body of the puller like I did with the Gateron switch puller and then pull straight up, and while that sometimes works, it usually doesn't due to the fact that it doesn't lock on. You can see in the side view here, it's fighting me. The switch is still locked in, and the prong is now underneath the switch, pulling out, and yeah, that's not going to do the job. Let's reset, bring things back in, lower it down. I'm locked in again, and you have two different options here. You can either grab on just like you originally would and then place your thumb underneath the lip of the plunger to lock it in like that, and then pull out, which works perfectly fine, though it doesn't want to eject the switch every time. The other way you can handle this is to grab right below the flared out edges at the top of the plunger and give a gentle tug. Last but not least, we have my custom puller, and for this what I like to do is use a reverse grip and put my middle finger through one of the rings. The other arm I actuate with my thumb and palm. It takes a little getting used to, but it's actually pretty easy. All we do here is bring it down where the locking tabs are, give it a squeeze, rock the switch, and we're out. Now in the case of the Gateron switch puller as well as the switch grabber, the manufacturers say that these are meant to be used with socket style hot swap only, not the sleeve style hot swap you see in this e-yooso Z11 RGB. However, I might as well test it. So once again, Gateron switch puller, over the switch, push down, give it a pull, and it works just fine. Now for the switch grabber, eject the prongs, lower it down slowly, and once again, I'm just gonna grab at the flared edges, probably gonna need a little counter pressure on the keyboard, and came out just fine. Last but not least, my custom puller. Let's just get it over the edges here. Yeah, not an issue. Now there's one more limitation I need to talk about in regards to the switch pullers in this video. Because while both of the switch pullers I bought are narrow enough to get into all of the bezels on the keyboards I've tested them with, one ended up having a problem with stabilizers. And the switch puller at fault happens to be this one. So if I bring in my Gateron puller, eject the prongs, place it over the switch, give it a gentle press, I can just pull things out nice and easy. However, if I bring in the switch grabber, it finds the locking tabs just fine, but if I lower it down, it's gonna just sit on top of the stabilizers. And as you can see from this side angle, I definitely struggle to make full contact and instead just end up dancing around on top of the stabilizers. And the reason for that is of course down to how thick the bases of both of these switch pullers are. Side note, the Gateron switch puller actually ended up being significantly smaller than I thought it would be from all of the product photos. Now if I bring in my calipers, let's just go ahead and get the width of the Gateron. it comes in at around a little over 17 millimeters, or almost exactly 17 millimeters. I guess I had it at a slight angle just then. Take that out of the way, bring in the switch grabber, and yeah, it's 19 millimeters. So it has an additional millimeter on each side. That's not an insignificant amount, as you saw. That being said, it's nothing a little sandpaper can't fix if you're willing to take the time. Just shave off a millimeter on each side and you should be good to go. And there you have a pretty unscientific comparison between these three switch pullers. The one that is arguably currently the industry leader, its copycat, and something that you can make yourself for dirt cheap. And I gotta say, I was a bit biased against the Gateron switch puller due to its price, but now that I've used it, I can see the appeal. And it does operate quite a bit better than the switch grabber. I just don't know if it's 4 times better due to the fact that it's 4 times the price. That said, the switch grabber definitely takes a bit of getting used to, but with enough practice and possibly a slight bit of sanding, it can definitely operate almost on par with the Gateron puller. Though if you do have issues with dexterity and grip strength, the Gateron puller might be worth the extra expense to you. Now, if any of these switch pullers have caught your attention, I'm going to go ahead and leave affiliate links to the Gateron switch puller as well as the switch grabber down in the description below. And I'll also include a link to not only the video tutorial where I show you how to make these, but also an affiliate link to the Amazon page where I picked up my 6-pack of these tweezers. And I go into detail in the tutorial video on why I chose these specific tweezers. And on that note, until next time, this is your guy, Cly, signing off.